What did you think of Dave Aranda? He seemed to be in, quite the good mood to be there. His first media days, he had a big smile on his face and seemed to really handle all the interviews well. He seemed comfortable, and that's to be expected once you do something long enough. It just becomes like old hat. He's been in the coach's chair now for a year, so he's settled in, and I don't know. He seems to have a good vibe going on headed into this season.
Yeah, I was excited to hear from him, and I agree. He just seemed to have this kind of confidence and a little bit of a swagger about him, honestly, when he was at Big 12 Media Days. I know a lot of people have talked about the fact that he's very open and honest about his football team, and also open and honest about the X's and O's that his football team's trying to install. And so I think people appreciate that when they get that kind of honesty. I know Max Olson mentioned it. I think some of the SiriusXM guys also mentioned that they appreciate that, because you don't get that kind of insight very much from other Big 12 coaches. So I was happy to see that, happy to see his confidence. I think he has truly made himself the face of the Baylor football program, and it took time. To be honest, I'm not sure if he was ever at that point last year, but I think after Big 12 Media Days, he's officially solidified that, and I think that he just had a great performance, and just really, I think overall, anyone who's a Baylor fan has to be really happy with the direction he's trying to take this program, the optimism, and like I said, just overall confidence that he showed. I think it's really a big thing for this team going forward.
Yeah, he was impressive. He did a really good job, and I know there were a lot of people who didn't know quite what to expect, but I think that they walked away impressed by Dave Aranda when it was all said and done, and that was, the impression I certainly got and what I heard as well. So, nice little debut for him at Big 12 Media Days, even though it's his second year at the helm for Baylor. Connor Galvin spoke, obviously Terrell Bernard. What were some things maybe else that we haven't touched on that you just picked up along the way at Media Days? I've kind of said everything that I've seen, or we've talked about most everything on the show the last 3 days, but what am I missing maybe that caught your attention while we were in Dallas?
Well, I have a couple things, but let's just start with one that I think we should definitely talk a little bit about, and that's Siaki Ika, and just kind of the impact that he's going to have on this defense. I think we've known this since he transferred, how big of an impact he could have, but I think just hearing more and more about it just kind of speaks to exactly what he brings to this football team and to this program. I mean, this is a guy who's an absolute game changer for them at the nose tackle position. Joey McGuire mentioned that he thinks he's the best Big 12 defensive lineman. That was a huge statement. There are some really good defensive linemen in this conference, and he thinks Ika is the guy for that. If he does achieve that, I mean, this Baylor defense is going to be absolutely scary, because he gives them an anchor. He allows those really good linebackers with Dylan Doyle, Terrell Bernard, and Jalen Petrie to get into the backfield and just make plays, really not disrupted. And I think that's what Dave Aranda mentioned, and it's kind of what Terrell Bernard mentioned, that he just makes life easier for them by keeping guys off of them, and that's what Bravion Roy did in 2019. So if he can really do that, whew, I mean, they're going to be really, really good on defense.
Yeah, no, they have all the makings to be a really good defense. Ika is going to need some help around him, though. He can't be tasked to do it all himself of like, oh, we got this guy, now we're short up on the offense or on the defensive line. And no, you need Cheedy, you need Solon, you need like whoever to be able to come up and make some plays as well. So hopefully he gives them those opportunities and they take advantage of those opportunities and help clean up the mess. So yeah, Ika was definitely a big talking point coming out of Media Days, and that was kind of it, actually. I mean, a lot of it was, I know for me, a lot of it was looking around at other teams and just kind of seeing what the talk was. Everybody but I'd say Kansas seems to be optimistic about this upcoming season. Anything else for you?
Yeah, I mean, I felt like after going to Media Days, you saw Oklahoma and Iowa State really, in my opinion, solidify themselves as the top two teams. It just seems like they have this swagger about them, that they're going to be really, really good. And that's not really surprising, but I did think there were some other teams that stood out, and just kind of my takeaways that I came up with. I know that we talked about some of those dark horse teams, and I had Baylor inside the top 6 in the conference with Oklahoma State and TCU right there with them, and I think those are the 3 through 5. I think those are 3 through 5, with Texas being 6. It just seems to me like Texas does have some time before they're going to reach their eventual landing spot with Sarkisian. I do think they'll be pretty good eventually, but I think this year's going to be tough. First year, it's always tough on a head coach, and I just think they do have some weaknesses that they still need to address. So I think Baylor, Oklahoma State, and TCU really moved up for me inside the top 5 in the Big 12. I think they're going to be really, really good, and I was excited to hear from their coaches. I think they did a really nice job, and like you mentioned, Kansas, not really excited about their season, but Texas Tech actually, Matt Wells seems pretty excited about the veteran unit that he's bringing back. So we'll see if he can do anything with it and if their quarterback, Tyler Shough, can do anything. But they did have some excitement about them, which is always nice to see, I think, for any fan base that's watching Texas Tech and is a fan.
Yeah, I mean, they were big at hyping up their defense, and they were fine last year. But, I mean, it wasn't like they were the the Wreckham crew or anything. I mean, they were definitely not that. They've got a lot of experience, especially at linebacker. But, yeah, I don't know just yet about them. So, it's a crapshoot coming out. I mean, definitely Oklahoma and Iowa State right there. And, I think Texas will be pretty good. I think TCU will be pretty good. I think Oklahoma State will be pretty good. So it'll be interesting. You kind of wonder where Baylor's going to get their wins in. I still maintain the same ones I did before the season. I think they can beat Texas Tech and Kansas, but they got to win their non-conference games. That's for dadgum sure. And they're going to have to find a couple wins that maybe don't look likely right now. And I don't know where those are coming from, but a lot of it will depend on who's at quarterback and who that looks like and what that looks like and how long that lasts. And I'm interested to see it. I'm interested for fall camp to get started up to learn a little bit more about this Baylor team, because I just have more questions now coming out of media days. I mean, there's a lot of answers, but now the questions that there are bigger questions, because the season is almost here and you don't have a quarterback yet, and your O-line is still kind of up in the air, and you got some things to answer. So, I was very impressed with Sarkisian. I mean, he's hard not to listen to and then walk away being impressed by. I think he, if given the free rein there, like he's apparently going to have, I think he'll definitely get that program in order and heading in the right direction. And not to say they're not already, because Herman was a goof, but they still won more than they lost. I mean, so it's not those like Sarkisian's coming in and taking over a 5-win team. So a couple moves and it might not take them long. So, I mean, you just look across the board. Riley was definitely very confident in his team. I mean, that's media days for you. Everybody's feeling good about their team on media days, except for Lance Leopold, who didn't even show up to Arlington because of a bus thing or whatever that was, a plane issue. Yeah, that was convenient.
Smart.
That was convenient.
Smart to not be there for that. But, I agree with you. I think it's interesting that Texas has a quarterback battle. I think that was something that really stuck out to me, because I think everyone assumed after the Alamo Bowl that Casey Thompson was just going to be the guy, but that has simply not been the case. He's been pushed by Hudson Card. It was kind of an interesting situation, very similar to Baylor a little bit. I know they're not the same grade level or anything like that, but it seemed like Casey Thompson really had the leg up all spring, and then Hudson Card had a very good spring game and kind of jumped himself right back into the race, and that's kind of similar to what happened with Baylor a little bit. I think everyone was kind of writing off Gary for some reason, then spring game happened, and now he's right back in it. And I think it's just interesting, because you mentioned how Baylor has uncertainty at the quarterback position. Well, Texas kind of does too a little bit. Yeah,
they do. So that'll be interesting to follow. And they didn't have either one of those guys there as a rep that would have kind of tipped their hand. And I guess they're unsure right now. So they're one of a couple schools that are trying to figure out the quarterback situation, but at least have options. That's the good news. Is at least there's options, and not one of those of like, I don't think we have a guy and it's a month out of the season. But trying to think, was there any more buzz on anything in particular out of media days? Not that I can recall at the moment off the top of my head.
I think the biggest riser in the conference from media days, which if you can really be a riser, just kind of, I don't even know, momentum, I would say, is actually Oklahoma State.
Yeah, probably.
Sneakily, I just think they've gone under the radar, and it's like they're kind of getting disrespected a little bit, I'm not going to lie, from the outside media, and they're probably going to be pretty good. And I just found that to be interesting. They had a lot of confidence about them. I mean, Spencer Sanders, Malcolm Rodriguez were ultra confident about what they were going to do this season. And I found that to be very interesting. I know Mike Gundy had some funny comments about Spencer Sanders a little bit and how he's kind of had to go through this developmental curve. And we've seen that. He's cost them some games, no doubt about it. But I do think that at the end of the day, he's going to be a pretty solid quarterback. And I think he's going to be pretty good this year. And Oklahoma State, they always go under the radar for some reason, then somehow Mike Gundy will get them to 10 wins. And I think that might just be the case this year.
I mean, if they win 10 games and they're flirting with the Big 12 title, so something's going to have to give because you're not going to have Iowa State, Oklahoma, and then potentially TCU or Texas or whoever jumps up and maybe has – I mean, you're not going to have 4 10-win teams. You're not going to have 3 10-win teams, so something's got to give. Yeah,
you could have 3. With a bowl game and
with a bowl game and a playoff and
you can find a way to get to 10.
Yeah,
potentially
you can, but basically that means that the 3 of you are beating everybody else and nobody else is really jumping up and winning any games. Yeah, so like that would be unlikely, let's say. So if you have potentially 3 10-win teams, and we're not even counting TCU or Texas into them, like that's what I'm saying. Well, something's got to give.
I mean, they could go 9-3, 6-3 in conference. That's quite a few losses, and then win their bowl game. I mean, they could easily. I mean, if
you want to believe that there's going to be like 3 9 to 10-win teams in the Big 12, not counting Texas or TCU, then by all means, I'm just saying that's possible, but I'm not banking on it nor thinking that it's the likelihood. Is what I'm saying.
Okay.
Yeah. It's just, I don't know.
I mean, it'll be interesting to see for sure. And I think I'm leaning more towards there being a bunch of 8-win teams than probably a third. Sure. But I'm just saying, I think likelihood, it seems like Oklahoma State has just kind of that edge to them where it could happen. Again, not anticipating they're going to go 10-2 during the season, but just saying I think they might be better than I think people are expecting.
Yeah, definitely possible. So Big 12 Media Days, anything else before we move on?
I wouldn't say a whole lot other than that. I think from the Baylor end, I just want to continue to say they just had a lot of confidence. I think Connor Galvin seems really happy with Eric Mateos coming into the fold. That was a big conversation as well, talking about the offensive line, how it's really gotten more simple, but also more violent. And they're just I think he's just excited for it. And he mentioned we're sprinting everywhere. That's just what it is. When the ball snapped, we're sprinting. And that just is something, I guess, different than what they had in the previous staff. And obviously, it's a different offense. Wide zone, they have to continue moving. And that's something that's been preached by Eric Mateos and Connor Galvin. He seems to be pretty excited about the guys that they do have. I personally need to see it before I really can know, but I will say it seems like Connor Galvin likes the spot that they're in and thinks that there are, 8 guys who can really, really play in that offensive line room.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you this much. Just talking to Terrell and Connor, their Big 12 Media Days, they're fired up. They definitely have a lot of confidence. They're definitely excited to be back. They definitely are getting along with the staff and feeling good about, what the team has done this offseason. So if you're wondering how the players feel, and it was genuine too. It wasn't one of those, look, I've seen plenty of Baylor teams that have gone through the motions at these events because they kind of have to, because the team stinks and they just got to put on a brave face, or they're unhappy and they just got to, smile through it. That wasn't the case here. There's a couple guys who really seem to be excited about this season and really fired up for what this team could potentially do. So that was a definite positive takeaway from Media Days, was just the atmosphere and the vibe around the players and coaches. It was genuine, and it was exciting if you're a Baylor fan to kind of see how happy they were to be there.
Yeah, it was. They were happy, and I think they're also just relieved to move on from last year. Let's be honest. Last year was a really tough year for everyone involved, and you can see that it had a big effect on Dave Aranda, Connor Galvin, and Terrell Bernard. They were not happy about what happened last year. That was way below the expectations. And I know Terrell Bernard, especially because he was hurt, there was nothing he could do about it. And now to see him 100% again and just really ready to take that step as a leader and as a player, I think it's very intriguing. I think if you're one of those people that's thinking Baylor, if you're taking the under, 6 games this year, I'd be very careful. I think this Baylor team can far exceed expectations for the 2021 season.
Yeah, it's going to be funny because, some fan bases out there are definitely a little too cocky right now. And we don't know which ones those are. But there's definitely some fans that are feeling themselves from some school. And it could be Baylor. I don't think it is because I think, obviously 2 wins last year. I think, you have every reason to believe you're going to be a better team this year. But everybody seems to think they're going to be better this year. So, except for Kansas. And even then, I didn't listen to any of their media sessions. No point in it. But I'm sure they feel like they're going to, win 2 games this year or something. I don't know. But, yeah, it's a conference that's, brimming with confidence right now. Pretty much everybody there felt like, it's good to be back, but hey, we're going to be the ones to win it all this year. Or we're the underdog, or we should be the favorites, or whatever the case may be. Just a lot of confidence. But hey, that's the preseason for you, like we've been saying. So that was the case for certain with Bernard and also with Galvin and with Aranda. The contingent did a really good job out there in Arlington. Trying to think if there's anything else. You got anything football-wise?
I think media days, that was pretty. We pretty much hit it all.
I mean, yeah, it's a good little event. I had fun. It was informative, but we got a lot of information up on the website if you're still wanting to dig through that, all the audio and things like that. And it was a good time. So now it's turn the page and get ready for fall practices and get ready for other sports and other events and things of that nature as well.